Linda Williams. I believe, I'm not sure if Linda Williams is with us or she was going to go to the affordable housing meeting. Is Linda Williams here? Okay. Larissa Olsels.
Here,
Okay.
I'm here.
Great. Rachel Cardello. I see you. Okay. Thaddeus Scott. I see you. Okay, great. Steve Dulugoff. Is Steve on here? I don't see Steve. Sasha DuBurn. Sasha, are you here? Okay, not there. And Hank is here. And myself. So we do have enough for quorum, so we'll continue. We can now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and lead that. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
Flag
of the
United
United States of
of
America,
America and to
and
the
to
republic
the republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
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 with liberty
with
and
liberty
justice
and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
All right, perfect.
Hank, if you want to go ahead and mute me, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. Sorry.
No problem.
Can you mute yourself, actually? You can do that.
Pound 6.
She's on the phone, Hank. That's probably why she's asking.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm gonna mute everybody again, except Marcelo and me. And then I'm gonna unmute Marcelo and me.
Okay. So I believe, all of us in the council here, just some housekeeping real quick. We got the July minutes via email. And make sure that we approve those minutes. Anybody in the council have any comments or have any issues with the minutes? Okay, no. So I go ahead and approve those minutes for July. All in favor say aye, or raise your hand. Aye. Okay. Any noes? No noes. Okay, so those are approved then. I'm not going to take the time to go through the all the scheduled meetings coming up. Our team here does a great job of not only putting it on our agenda, but also giving links to all the city resources to see the agenda coming up between the city commission meeting, the HEP board, PSAT meetings. We've got them all coming up between basically the 23rd this week, all the way through October 14th. And we have some URDB meetings and city commission meetings on the 14th and 20th and 21st. So keep an eye on that. I know we had an unfortunate conflict today with affordable housing meeting going on the Grove at Vera Park. I know that Commissioner Russell is going to try to meet with us real quickly here today before the 6:30 meeting. I don't know if he was able to make it. Is Commissioner Russell here on the line now?
He will come on at 6:10.
Oh, okay. All right. Does any of the council members have any items to change or add to the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none. I think I would like to do.
I have some,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Somebody asked me to mention the meeting tomorrow about Wawa. There is the Gables Accountability Group announced that there's going to be a court hearing about the Wawa case, and I'm going to put the link to that in the chat. Sorry, Linda's calling right now. I'll put the link in the chat. Yes. I will send it to you. That's Linda Williams. She'll be coming on. Steve Steve Dlugoff just joined. Linda, I'll send you the link. I'll email it to you.
I see that Sasha also just joined by phone. So I think we have everyone here today so far. In addition, we have an item D here, discussion items about the Douglas Ingram Highway improvements. I know that there's been just some cleanup. I don't think we have any new updates from the county plan to do the intersection there. So I think we're going to skip that one for the next meeting. So I'm going to leave that one for later. So what I'd like to do is, we have a couple of few items on here that I'm sure have a lot of attention. One being the Playhouse new plan, and also the new Grand Douglas redevelopment and zoning application that have been submitted. What I'd like to do is there's going to be two very quick presentations and discussion items on the Playhouse first. And I'd like to open it up to the council members to discuss. And we're going to hold in public comments for a little bit later in the meeting so we can get through this and just try to go through the bullet points that are important for us to just try to make a decision. The village council is hoping to pass update a resolution on that item by this week so we can get that moving. So I want to make sure we as a council members have enough time to converse amongst ourselves. I'm gonna go real quick.
Excuse me, Ken Russell just signed in, so he'll be coming on in a moment, just so you're aware of that.
Okay, so if he's is he unmuted or by any chance?
I'm gonna unmute him in just a second. I'm sending Linda the link.
Okay.
I'm here. I found it, Hank. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Because I'd like to see, I know Ken's gonna have to go, Ken Russell's gonna have to go pretty soon. So if we can get him on right now, it'd be great. And then we'll move on to the other Commissioner Regalado.
Okay, he is on and he is not muted.
Hey neighbors, how you doing?
Hey there, Ken. So I know that you're going to another meeting. I think we're gonna have a few of our members there also. We were splitting up because unfortunately, it was a scheduling conflict. But want to just basically see if you had a chance. We're gonna have one of our big conversational pieces now is going to be the Playhouse, and then also the new Grand Douglas development plan that's coming up for an upzone. If you had any comments or thoughts on either one that you'd like to make for us, or
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Hank. Thanks, Marcelo. And I'd like to apologize for the double booking because I know the other meeting is also something that's very interesting to the council. Looking at a affordability plan for the West Grove, separate from the CRA. This is really the CRA is really about how do we program and spend. This will be more the guidelines of how do we develop there, what's appropriate, what's not, and where. Instead of waiting, like the Douglas and Grand, waiting for applicants to come one by one with what they want, we'd like to set the rules of the road for what the community wants, so that everything's predictable and can actually move rather quickly for the neighborhood instead of a lot of uncertainty and haggling and everything. So that's what tonight's meeting is the start of, but you won't, this isn't the end of it either. It's going to be a good, thorough process, and everyone's going to have a chance to be involved. Regarding the Playhouse, my position hasn't changed. I've enjoyed a very respectful working relationship with the county, but I've been clear with them from the start to finish. I don't agree with demolition of the theater structure itself, the shell of the theater. I believe that's what makes it, relevant in its story. I believe it could be developed around and above with full lining, and it could even be rebuilt within itself without having to demolish the structure, the shell itself. But I know the county does have pretty robust plans, and they've tried to make it more Grove friendly with a new aesthetic and arrangement and planning. And I know they're doing their very best, but I've been clear on my position. Regarding Douglas and Grand, I've been made aware of this application for change in zoning. I have not made any position on this, as I don't with any quasi judicial matter, but I can say that anyone coming to the West Grove to redevelop that is not working as of right, that's seeking entitlements, definitely needs to be working with the community and recognizing the priorities of the community, number one of which is affordability. So we'll be looking for a lot of that with whatever they're proffering. But I haven't had any meetings on that at this point. But my advice to anyone who's applying at this point, they should get involved with the meetings that we're having with the community right now. The blueprint will encompass all of these parts of the neighborhood and what may or may not be appropriate to help incentivize affordability and healthy development.
All right, great. Yeah, Ken, we're going to try to look at the Playhouse today and try to just pick a few, the pertinent facts of where the plan looks for today, so we can try to move this thing, do our best to try to help it move this thing forward. Knowing very well that we're not ever gonna please everyone, but hopefully to get something off the ground so we can get this project going. I think everyone's in definite agreement that we can't let it sit, and that's for sure. So, all right, thank you very much. I know you got to go to another meeting unless you want to say anything else.
I've got time. If anyone has questions, I do have time. Absolutely. My next meeting's not till 6:30, and it's that blueprint, the affordability blueprint meeting. So,
all right, great.
I'm
What I'll
available
do
for
is,
any questions you guys have.
so yeah, I think that I believe a couple of our members are going to be at that meeting because we don't want to miss it, and I think definitely we'll have a follow up and want to produce something from the village council as part of resolution of what we think would be the best guideline to do that. You're very right to see what the structure should be before we start approving individual items. That's very important because the West Grove is also was left behind in the Miami 21 as far as completing the proper zoning. So we know we have wrong zoning in a lot of areas that don't really apply to sustainable development. And I think that's part of that application coming in too that needs to be corrected. So we're looking forward to do that. Any other council member have any comments for Commissioner Russell? Yes, Rachel?
So one thing I just want to ask about process is the Miami 21 ad hoc committee. And I think they're sort of coming to a conclusion on their report or recommendation to the commissioners, and just understanding where does it go from there, next steps in terms of that process. And is the ad hoc committee dissolved once the report is issued to the commissioners?
Thank you. I got to go back and look at how it was codified by resolution to create the committee. I do believe it sunsets when their job is done. The question is what dictates when their job is done. I would imagine there's a world where the commission has questions or wants to dig a little deeper on something, or may not agree on something, and sends it back to them for further discussion. That could happen, I believe, under the current rules under which it's created. But it's definitely not meant to be something that lingers beyond our decision-making process. But it's, as you know, it's advisory to the commission. So what they decide isn't set in stone. It then comes to us for what actual changes to the code may or may not happen.
Okay, Hank, go ahead.
There's the chair of the committee, Melissa, is on with us, and she raised her hand.
Good evening, everyone. It was just by coincidence I'm here for a future presentation. Just to let everyone know that our task force had its final meeting today, and we do sunset on October 7th. We will be presenting the final report to the City Commission at its October 28th meeting. So I just wanted to chime in with that.
Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Any other council member have any questions to the commissioner? Hank, I can't see everyone on my screen. Oh, there you go, Thaddeus. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thaddeus.
Good evening, Commissioner Russell. Just want to let the council and the community know that we here in Village West, we appreciate the development that comes. There is no anti-development movement here, right? Our concern is that the development does not or is not being directed toward this present community's longevity as it is. You know, I don't mean so much as it is not what I'm not talking about so much as people or whatever, but we there's nothing being built where I can move back here. If I were to sell my house right now, there's no way I could afford to live back in the Grove. And I own a home. So just think of the people who rent here and how they feel, right? So as new development comes, let's please press forward to the developers or whomever that comes to do development, that there's already a constituency here that needs to be addressed. You know, you can still do your high end, whatever. Nobody's against, but there are people that are still here, lifelong residents that are still here, that still want to live here. So what are these developers, as they come and do their high-end development, what are they going to do to contribute toward the people who are still here? And I don't think that's a socialism piece. I don't think that's a communist piece. I think that's a self-preservation piece from our end. There were homes where this new Grand and Douglas piece is coming up. Those were homes at one point. Those were houses, at one point. And I get the business aspect. I get the want to upgrade. I understand all of that, and nobody's against that, right? No, me and nobody else. We're not going to burn down any buildings, right? But we are asking, as you come, look out for us too. You're asking us for our input, and our input is self-preservation. Self-preservation.
Thaddeus, you, if I may respond, Mr. Chair, you hit it right on the head. This is about encouraging healthy development with a system of carrots and sticks. And the carrots are the incentives that the CRA can bring. But in the same token, it's going to have the stick with regard to the CRA, the public benefits agreements, covenants on any deals that are made with any developers with the community, and then this zoning is going to be governed by this affordable housing blueprint, and that will be the absolute priority. Is that we improve the West Grove for the people who live there now. Welcome to those who come. Develop what you can as of right. But anything you're going to need from this community with regard to support for entitlements, for zoning, for incentives, are all going to have strings attached that are tied to affordability and improvements to the community for the residents that live here now. This is our one chance, I believe our last chance, to improve this neighborhood without displacing the remaining residents who live here now. And if we get it right, it can be a really special thing. We can actually see some rebirth and growth in the West Grove, but not at the expense of the neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you. I'll get to that question just real quick. I totally agree. And I think that's why between the CRA and the incentives to the hopefully revisions to the NCD, we can just add more tools into the toolbox. So when a developer comes, because this is a partnership with the city, public and private development, and the developers need these bonuses and incentives when it's tied to affordability, right? Because the way just the land's too expensive and the zoning's not really right for it right now. So once we change the zoning or we add toolbox, we don't have to change anything. Just say, hey, if you want any extras, here are the toolbox of extra items you can do, and we'll give you A if you give us B. And that's really what it is. We don't have enough of those tools in there yet. And I think that CRA and the NCD are really what we need to get that thing going. Steve, I think you had a comment.
I was in I'd like Ken Russell to hear this. I was in a meeting today with about 15 people, have nothing to do with Coconut Grove, and most of us didn't know each other. So we introduced ourselves, and I said, where do you live? And I said, I live in Coconut Grove. And maybe 6 or 7 people said, whoa, how can you afford to live there? That's only for rich people. The government must not care. And I heard that from 5, 6 different people. So in keeping with what Thaddeus said, that's the opinion about what Coconut Grove has become. The government doesn't care, and man, is it expensive.
It's true. It takes a very concerted effort to include affordable housing in your policies. It doesn't happen organically, and organically what's happening is incredible boosts to prices. And Coconut Grove is of course one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the city, and the city is under immense pressure right now, pricing pressure. There's very little stock on the market of housing stock, and so organically it's just getting driven up. So if you want to preserve affordability within any neighborhood, especially one that's growing like this, there needs to be some sort of finger on the scale. But like Thaddeus said,
Been trying to do
rather
it for years.
yeah, but it's, I mean, the intention has been there for years, but nobody has actually passed legislation or created incentives or programs or guardrails to actually do it. And this is what we're doing right now. The CRA is the biggest step that this community has taken. And it's going to be tremendous for what it can actually produce. Over $500 million in tax increment that will be retained in the West Grove over the next 30 years, and it won't go out to the remainder of the county and the city. This is not a small CRA. This is a very big project. And so I want to really make sure we have as much of it assigned as possible before I'm out of office in 2023.
Hey, Hank?
Anthony Witherspoon has had his hand up a long time. I don't know how you click on to raise your hand, but you can also put it in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat. So I just don't know, Marcelo, if you even saw that Anthony had
Yes,
his hand up.
I see. I'm seeing that. Yeah, I was getting through the council members first, but
Okay.
go ahead, Anthony. While you're unmuted, go ahead if you have a question to the.
Oh, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to congratulate Commissioner on all the great work he's doing. Express some sentiments, similar sentiments to Thaddeus Scott. I am one of the new prospective village council persons who will be running for the new seats this year. So I guess I'll get a chance to introduce myself later. But very quickly, I do want to express to the commissioner as well as Thaddeus, there is a permit that has been submitted that will bring a little life to West Coconut Grove. And I hope that the commissioner will take a look at it. That involves the Coconut Grove Sports Hall of Fame Museum and also a lot property across the street that would bring some enhancement to the West Grove as far as entertainment, cultural entertainment, as well as heritage. So that's forthcoming. You get a chance, Commissioner, please take a look at that permit. And that's something I think will go under your belt because I've been inspired by you since your particular interest into the office. So let's keep up the work, and hopefully West Grove is going to see some immediate improvement outside, of course, of the big developers coming in, doing what we don't want to do to the heritage of the community. Thank you very much. Hope you get a chance to introduce
Thank you,
myself
Mr. Witherspoon. And please, that's a perfect issue to bring up with the CRA staff, which is Jason Walker is the director now of the West Grove CRA. So if a grant or a program can be created to help support the museum, that falls perfectly within the guidelines of what a CRA can expend upon.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I believe you've got time. You have to go now, but thank you for making your time to be over here. And we're definitely going to follow up with that affordable housing summit you're having there to try to give our 2 cents worth for it.
I'm not far. I'm at Vyrick Park now. I see a lot of people coming in, so it looks like it'll be a good meeting. Thanks for everything you guys do, and keep on letting me know how I can help.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there goes Clarice. I'm going to follow her in now.
All right. Very good. I'm not sure if is Congresswoman Salazar, Bobby, are you on the call?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bobby, I'm gonna give you any quick updates you have for us.
Yeah,
that'd
and
be
I
great.
realize that there's a lot of important stuff on the menu tonight. By the way, I'm gonna be brief. I just want to reiterate on the Prosperity Center. The Prosperity Center is working out of the Grove every Wednesday. It's like a career source type of thing. People can come get help finding jobs, get help learning a trade, and get help getting small business loans. So we are in the Grove every Wednesday at the Frankie Rose Center. The next item that I have is a job fair. The Congresswoman made it a point in her campaign to help people get jobs. We have a job fair coming up in November. I don't have the exact date, but it's in the works for November. It'll be her second job fair since she's been appointed. Then the other project that we have that is in very, very baby steps right now, we're just starting to get it off the ground, is that we're working with the donor that wants to help the youth, in the Grove. And we're working to see if we can get involved in partnership with the city of Miami in revamping the barnyard and revamping the abandoned basketball court that's right next to the barnyard. This is what this donor wanted to do. We're actually going to tour it on Wednesday. And so I'll keep you in the loop on that. And my final is a beautification project, you know, that we do these every 3 months. This one isn't really in the Grove, but this one is a really great story. It's in Little Havana, and we're revamping, we're landscaping and painting and cleaning up the yard of a 28-year political prisoner under Castro's dictatorship that actually served 28 years and 3 months. And he has a home in Little Havana. His yard is all really messy. We're working in partnership with Commissioner Manolo Reyes, who's the city commissioner for the area. And this is going to take place on October the 16th. The same as we did with Darlene Jackson. And so that's in the works too. This is, like I said, you know, I met him. This guy's a real hero. This guy, you know, they call him El Huesito, Little Bones, because he's really skinny. And like I said, he served 28 years and 3 months, and he deserves what's coming his way. We're going to make it a beautiful day. We have the Commissioner Reyes and we have the Congresswoman all on board. So I'm going to be sending out a flyer for that. Pretty much that's all I have. If anybody has some questions.
Anybody from the council? Any questions for Bobby? Okay, go ahead, Hank.
Thaddeus wanted to speak. I just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
Well,
Thaddeus.
hey, Bobby, how you doing, my brother?
We're 2-0.
That's what I was about to say, right? What about them Raiders, you know? Bobby, man, thank you for all the hard work you're doing, you know, for this community and for the people of not just Village West, but all throughout the district that your boss serves. Yeah, so can your office help the commissioner's office, Ken's office, I'm speaking of, guide this community affordability piece? How much help can the federal government give, you know, toward driving this? Let's make it, how close can it come to being federal law or some federal input? You know, because the thing that I'm concerned with is that, okay, we came up with the NCD, right? Now we're finding out that the NCD has no teeth, right? There's no enforcement here. So we keep coming up with certain things that try to preserve this community. And then other people come 10, 5 years down the road and say, hey, we want to do what we want to do, right? When there are already agreements made, you know, with developers or whomever, you know? So how can the federal government get involved in ensuring that whatever agreement we come up with is that it's being held to?
That's something that I'm definitely going to bring up. I mean, once a week with the Congresswoman. I'm going to bring it up to her. And I'm also gonna bring it up to one of our legislative aides. I'm gonna try to get, I'm sure I can get one of our legislative aides to attend our next meeting. That are better versed on these legislative issues than I am, because I do community outreach. But so I'm gonna get our chief of staff or our deputy chief of staff. So to attend the next meeting, so we can address these questions, Thaddeus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bobby. And
Okay,
Marcelo,
yes,
may I be excused?
yes,
So I
sir.
can be a housing meeting? please?
Absolutely.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you for doing that. Okay. Okay, anybody else for Bobby on the council? Go ahead, Hank.
I don't, Marcella, can you see these raised hands?
I can see them on, I have to flip multiple screens, but I can see when they come up. Yes.
All right,
but I
I'm
guess-
looking at them. Eddie Leal wants to speak.
Okay, you got a question for Bobby?
I do.
Eddie,
Thank you.
Yes,
Bobby, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to offer our office assistance for the barnyard. A few months ago, I actually visited the place and saw one of the fences that wasn't in good shape. And it was call it an adventure to get it fixed. We got it fixed and the mayor's office facilitated the funding. So if you have that gracious donor that wants
Yep.
to facilitate the improvement,
yes,
I will be happy to talk to you offline and kind of someone here will, I'm sure will put us in connection, but because I think they do a very fine job. I visited a few times and I think it needs some TLC. So I just wanted to offer that because I know that even within the city, there's, some interesting process that you have to go in order to, get something nice done. So
Thank you, Eddie.
wanted to offer that.
okay, I appreciate that. That's definitely our goal. We've already pretty much, and we're working under the advice of Anthony Witherspoon. On Wednesday, my chief of staff, my deputy chief of staff from Washington DC is coming to tour the barnyard and the abandoned basketball court next door to it. Maybe you might want to join us.
I would be happy to. I've been there with Commander. And we visited the area and we've seen the great job. So the answer is yes, I'll be happy to go. Just let me know.
So 10:30 Wednesday at the barnyard, we'll meet. Is that okay?
Next Wednesday?
The day after tomorrow.
Oh, okay, this Wednesday. Oh, perfect. At 10:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
10:30, we're gonna meet up there. I have my deputy chief of staff who's very interested. Like I said, we have a private donor that wants to do this. And then this is just gonna be our first step. I know that it's gonna be a process to work with the city, but I think that the city will welcome it. And
I've never seen anybody necessarily discourage accepting of funding, but you never know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You never know. Eddie, so see you Wednesday at 10:30, right?
Okay,
Yes, sir. Bye.
Can I
Sorry
have
about that. Thank you, guys.
Can you
Yeah.
send me a confirmation email, confirmation contact for you?
We'll get someone here to share that information with us and we'll
Yeah.
make it happen. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bobby.
okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands. Hank, you have any more hands out there? I think we're good. All right, good. So look, we're gonna go ahead and jump into the Playhouse. I know that Commissioner Regalado, I believe, is Rebecca. I think Rebecca's on the line here with us. Just to give everyone a little update, there's been, Commissioner Regalado has, taken some steps on her own to try to bring this Playhouse issue to the front lines and try to get this thing resolved between the disputes we have amongst the city, the county, and obviously many of the residents. There has been a couple groups that have been very vocal and spent a lot of time on it. And I promised we'd have a quick presentation. And again, these are not going to be long, presentations. We're just trying to see exactly what the differences is from the original application to what's it's morphed into and what's being proposed now. So we have the facts here going forward. So I believe we had either Mr. Parrish or John, who would like to take their first presentation here for Is that Andy Parrish?
It is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, if you're unmuted, perfect. Go ahead, Andy.
All right. With in my house with John Nord and Marlene Irvin, we're all part of Save the Coconut Grove. Our presentation. First, thank you very much for allowing us to butt in on your long agenda. Our presentation is really short. We are deeply appreciative of you allowing us to be here tonight. And after careful consideration, we feel that if the following 4 points, just 4, can be agreed upon, we can finally get our beautiful playhouse open again. So number 1, immediately secure and protect the building from the elements of vandalism. Number 2, the Playhouse's restoration must comply with the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for historic preservation and thereby maintain its city, state of Florida, and National Register historic designations. Number 3, there must be a respected architect with impeccable historic credentials, fully in charge of assuring that the Playhouse does not lose its historic designations. Number 4, there should be a 600-seat theater, which we believe is a good compromise, allowing for maximum flexibility. And we sincerely hope that this proposal will be accepted by all parties for the benefit of the citizens of both the city and the county. And did I leave anything out, John?
Nope. No, let me just reiterate. I'm John Nort,
4 points.
living in Coconut Grove, and I just think, we suggest a simple compromise and to say again, I'd like to secure and protect the building. Number 2, restore it under the Secretary of Interior's guidelines so it retains its historic designation. Number 3, appoint a respected historic architect to be fully in charge of adherence to the guidelines. And 4th, to reduce the theater to 600 or 600 plus, which is 50% less of its original and 50% more than was proposed. And we hope that the city and county can agree to move forward and break this gridlock.
Arlene?
Okay, so we'd just like to thank the Village Council.
You're muted.
I can't,
Oh,
you have to
you
mute,
gotta have
you
your
have to,
headphones.
you
You
have
gotta
to
speak
mute,
into your
you
head.
have to mute.
No, you gotta put
Okay, now,
a headphone on.
there you go.
Now you can.
Okay, I apologize.
Somebody's got to turn off something that's next to you because you're reverb now. Try again.
Do it on this one.
Can you hear me?
Try again.
Okay. Okay. Now can
That
you?
works. Yes.
Sorry, okay. So again, thanks to the council for letting us give you our position. We want this building treated with the respect it deserves. And we want our historic playhouse, once again, to be a cultural center and an economic driver in the Grove. We all want the same thing, and we hope that the city and county can come together and make this happen. And we don't think that what we're asking for is unreasonable. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I know Rebecca Wakefield is on the call, and she was also gracious enough to come on just to try to keep us on the facts. And Rebecca, I'm not sure if are you unmuted now? Let's see if we can find her here. I know she texted me that she's here. Rebecca. Can you, I see you're muted. If you could try to unmute.
I think she has to unmute herself.
Let's see here. Let me try real quick here via text. So while we wait for her, just to give everyone a little background. So the Village Council has reviewed, has been a party to this since the beginning. We've issued 3 resolutions, each one updating the prior as things changed. And this is going to try to focus on a conversation with just our council members here to try to see, just to make sure that we're all got the right information. The new proposed changes, and I wanted just to confirm with Rebecca, has not changed any significant item of the floor plan, the site plan, or the structures. What it has done is tried to bring in some more village grove type of architectural features, basically cosmetics. And that's, they're all well welcomed, a lot more trees coming in and so forth, and in shade areas. But I believe that the actual, square footage, site plan, floor plans have not changed. There's also claiming that the plan the way it is now is shovel ready, and we'd like to understand what shovel ready means. I know this is a state project, so I'm sure that there is some state approvals that need to be going on, and also that there's some permits required locally here from the city. So we'd like to find out where that is. And we'd also like to find out, if we're still fully budgeted and got all the financial resources for that. I personally agree with quite a few of the items brought up by the I guess we'll call them the Playhouse committee here, the resident committee. I think it's very important that whatever is done forward, regardless of the plans have been in the past, that it must be checked with the state to make sure that all certificates for historical assurances are dealt with. I did tour the place many years ago with George Hernandez, who is a historical architect expert. And there are some serious issues with some of the existing structure that are not in great shape, but I know that you can still achieve historical significance if you even have to rebuild something and try to bring it back. But those are something that I'd like to see. How's that being treated in the new plan? I also think that it should be a no-brainer, but they do have to secure the place immediately, because this may take a while to put a shovel in the ground, and we don't want it deteriorating any more than it is. And I also think it's a great idea. No malintentions or disrespect to Arquitectonica, but they also did hire a consultant that wasn't a historical expert. And I think that the city and the county can easily readdress that issue and bring on a consultant that would lead in having full power to decide on historical significance or preservation above and beyond the architect of record. And I think that would, go a long way in trying to bring this battle to a conclusion. The other issue is that the size of the theater, number of seats. I mean, that's a very disputed argument. Lots of people have a lot of different feelings about it. And when we talk about it, let's just make sure they understand that it's usually more than all these different designs have included more than one theater. So we're talking about a main theater and auxiliary theaters. So when we talk about number of seats, just to include if it's one place or total as in the complex, there are some great ideas and possibilities of making expandable areas that can add more seats or delete more seats in movable stages. I am glad that the seats have come down to 600 from the original 1,000, because I personally didn't think that it was something that was sustainable in our day and age. But I'd like to open it up to any other council member that has any comments on those, and where I like if you had a chance to review the pamphlet they gave out, or actually the presentation, and see if any comments. I see that we have Rachel Cardello, please.
Sure. And I appreciate sort of the summary, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a context as well to the resolutions that this particular body passed. The one in 2018 was very much focused sort of from a business plan perspective. We didn't really take a strong position about the size of the theater, because we sort of wanted to leave that to the professionals in the industry and what was most viable from that perspective, from a business perspective. And we were presented a lot of financial information that showed a successful, potentially successful theater there. And at the time in 2019, we passed a second resolution. And I just want to give some context to why we passed a second resolution, not to sound like we're sort of flip-flopping. But in 2019, right, there's a lot of things that had happened after that first initial resolution. The first was that in October 2018, the Playhouse was listed on the National Register. So we've talked about that a few times. But also in March of 2019, the HEP board made clarification that the entire theater was understood to be part of what should be protected and not just the facade, which is something that the original plan from previous years focused on. And I think that clarification from the HEP board should be respected. It is a body that we've all put our trust in to sort of guide decisions. I know that it was appealed and we all know where that's went, but I still believe it was a voice of the community, that HEP board, that made sort of an interpretation and clarification on the original position when it was indicated to be the whole facade, clarified to be the whole building. So when we made the second resolution in 2019, the few things that I didn't see happen in the new called the Regulados plan is that we didn't want that National Register of Historic Places to have any jeopardy, no point of jeopardy. It should be fully locked in place with whatever plan goes forward. That the renovation should take into account the entire footprint of the building. That was in our last resolution. Should be sensitive to the neighborhood. And I think there's been some progress from an architectural perspective to be more respectful of sort of Grove architecture. And then there was the other conditions from 2018 that we also included in that. So I'm just kind of putting that in context. Those bullet points, again, sort of resonates a little bit with what Mr. Parrish and the group there said, which is the footprint, the designation, sensitivity to the neighborhood. But I personally leave the size of the theater to the professionals in the industry again, because I think that sort of is where the rubber hits the road in terms of making it viable. And I don't have a good handle on that. So I just wanted to kind of give that context to the first initial resolution and why we came up with our second resolution. And I think everything that we hear tonight from the commissioner's perspective should really be kind of put in context or in check to that last resolution: historic preservation, size of the theater, footprint of the theater rather, and so on and so forth. So that's what I will be looking at in terms of, does it meet those criteria that we put in place in 2019?
Great, thanks. I've been keeping notes here. So I know that Rebecca's back on, but let's go ahead and take a comment from each of the council members first. I know other residents have your hands up, but let me do the council members first. We'll talk to Raquel, to Rachel, and we'll go from Rebecca, and then we'll go from there. So Steve, you have a comment?
Yeah, I've got questions about the 4 items that they mentioned. One, I'm really kind of amazed that the building hasn't been secured. As far as historic preservation, I don't think that the auditorium was really historic. I think it's been rebuilt many times. I'd like to be corrected on that. As far as an architect, I think we had a good one, but I'm not a judge on architects. The thing on the 600 seats, I don't know if they mean what Marcelo said, a 400 and a 200, 2 different theaters. But what I haven't seen here, whenever I hear pipe dream comments, how about a budget? How about a plan, a fiscal plan on how this thing is going to support itself? No one brings that up on these people that came talk tonight. No one has said a word about how it's going to get paid for. We're going to do this, but how are we going to pay for it? And if we don't pay for it right, it'll be broke all over again. So I think I'm most concerned about it seeing some sort of plan on how this thing can pay for itself with the changes that they want.
So I know that there is a budget in place, by the way. I didn't focus on that, but there is one in place, and we'll expand on that a little bit later. Anybody else in the village council have any comments that they would like to make?
Yes,
Okay, Linda?
yes, to have this change. It might appear to be minor to most, but the Village West community was not a friend of the Coconut Grove Playhouse. And we embrace the idea that it is coming back alive and we're being included in that process. To increase the number of seats after we pretty much got ourselves acclimated to a smaller venue, we're constantly concerned about the traffic flow. And if no one else lives in Village West, maybe you can't relate to that. Charles Avenue is a very narrow street. And just like we say code enforcement can't handle this or that, will they handle the in and out traffic flow? Or will that become just something that we wind up having to deal with? So my concern, the increase in the seating and the traffic flow. If we can be assured of studies or whatever needs to be done, that Village West does not need to be inundated with traffic entering or exiting the Playhouse. Thank you.
Okay, well noted. We do have some comments on the traffic that we can make up. Go ahead, Hank, you're next.
I actually don't have a comment, but I want to make sure the process is fair and that everybody gets a chance to speak. Rebecca Wakefield, I believe, is now connected and could say something if she wants to.
I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
great.
great.
Thank you. So what I was going to do, I was taking some notes down from each of the council members. That way we can then hit you with all at once. But so I'm gonna
Oh,
see-
wonderful.
Okay. So I just wanted to see if any other council member had any comments. You go ahead, Steve.
One more question. The people that want 600 seats, are they willing to commit that on seats that are not sold the day of a performance, that they're going to offer them to the students in the schools of Coconut Grove?
Okay. So just to let you know, we'll go back and I'll confirm this with Rebecca. Like I said, there is the main theater now being proposed, I believe is 300 seats. And there is a smaller venue also in the floor plan, if I'm not correct. But so, and this is going to be run by the county. This is not run by the city. And we'll also take a look at, I'd like to see, there was a performer that was done way back when that did list, funding and availability, and it was based on the 300 and so forth. But we can get into the budget a little bit later. Anybody else in the council that has not spoken that would like to make a comment? Hank, you can see everyone there. Anybody that I'm missing? No? Okay, my screen is split up into 3 different sections, so I don't see everybody. Okay, so Rebecca, I know that you're the messenger here, so I'm gonna everyone take it easy on her because she's here's the facts, right? A couple of questions that came up. The new presentation says it's shovel ready. Do you know if, I know we saw, and we've always seen architectural plans and renderings and so forth, has the construction drawings, mechanical, electrical, structural, all that been submitted, approved, and ready for permit, or do you know what that stage that's in?
No, they can't do that until we get through this piece, I
Right.
mean, that I think they're shovel ready is maybe a little optimistic in the sense that, yes, they still have to pull permits, they still have to do all of that. But the overall approval process could move forward if the court case resolves itself, or if all the parties come together and say, okay, we agree to X, let's go.
Right, okay. I know also that there's been some, quickly talking about the traffic, there is a specific curb cut that was put into the driveway to get into the loading docks. That is a forced curbing to allow the trucks or any vehicles only to leave eastbound onto Franklin or Charles, so they cannot come from that area. And I was wondering, I've spoken to other people in the past that yes, Franklin and Charles would be the 2 major streets that would connect Douglas Road to Main Highway. Right now, both those roads have a stop sign at Main Highway that says you cannot turn left, but everyone does because it's never enforced. If a curb cut in Public Works was done where it forces the cars to only go southbound, that would eliminate the desire for anybody to come down those two streets, because they would have to then turn south and miss the entire, Playhouse area. So I don't know if you know if there's any other curb cutting or traffic control mechanism done beyond the site plan of just that, of the site itself.
I don't think this has advanced further than it was,
Okay.
In terms of those details, but that's the kind of stuff that we can absolutely get into the weeds on. Because,
Okay.
When this came to the city, it was 2 years ago. So
Right.
many things have happened, including approval of a hotel on Charles that may impact some of these things. But in general, this project is intended to have the deliveries and all of those things kind of not impact the neighborhood to the maximum extent.
Right. Also then, I know that, has this plan as it stands today gone back to the state to look for the historical, to make sure it maintains the historical classification that was issued originally? Do you know if that's?
I
part of
don't
the
know.
process?
And I'm going to just tell you that I'm certainly not the expert on this. We have county staff who can answer all these detailed questions. And all of you are invited to, we're going to do a virtual community meeting on October 4th at 5:30. The notices will be going out tomorrow, I'm told, where you will have Mayor Levine Cava, you will have the commissioner, you will have Michael Spring, and you can get any detail level question answered there that I can't answer for you right now, just FYI.
Okay. Yes, Hank?
Rebecca, I apologize for the communication problems, but I'm glad you're on now.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Did you hear the 4-point proposal that was presented at the beginning of this discussion?
Yeah. No, it's and I've spoken with Andy about it. I had reached out to him to just say, hey, we've done, several of you have gotten individual briefings or small group briefings because we wanted to kind of engage people one-on-one in small groups so we could show this, get your feedback, and kind of keep tweaking it. So I know Marcelo, Larissa, Hank, you yourself, Rachel, and Linda have all seen some version of this. Andy had not, other than through your article in the Coconut Grove Spotlight. So, he shared with me some of their asks, and I'm sharing those with the commissioner. Some of them are easier to do than others, maybe. I think one of the points that Steve brought up earlier was in terms of the size of the theater and the financial plan for that. I'm not a theater expert. I don't know what it takes to run a good theater and to keep it financially viable. Clearly, at some point, the Coconut Grove of the past became financially unviable, which is one of the reasons that it closed its door in 2005, 2006. Our staff tell us that 300 seats is the magic number. I can tell you from having heard all of this in my role as a staffer to Ken Russell, there's different ideas about that. The current plan, the funding mechanism is largely the parking garage. The parking garage will generate something on the order of $300,000 a year, which will support the theater. So that is part of the reason that they designed it that way. Whether a theater that's 500 or 600 seats is financially viable, maybe. I think one of those things is where does the money come from up front to do that? The city has not put in money, and no other entity has put in money. So I think the county is working with, here's the money we have, which is about $23 million. If those conditions were to change, maybe it's a different conversation. That's kind of where they are right now.
Well,
I didn't get a chance to comment, and I just want to say very quickly that I think that I speak for a lot of people in Coconut Grove, people that I talk with a lot, who just want to get the thing moving. I think there are more people who just want to get it moving and get it built, whatever it is, than people who have a specific position on exactly what it should be like, how many seats there should be in the theater, how much of it should be preserved. I think that if you polled people in Coconut Grove, the sentiment of build it, just build it, stop, don't let it rot. I think that would be what a vast majority of people would say. So that I strongly feel that way myself, and that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So here's the thing, and again, this meeting is not to get into the weeds of number of spaces or seats, or, you know, it's just, we're going to go here and spend hours on that. And I think I'm glad to know that there's another, you know, virtual meeting with actually all the main decision makers, you know, on board. So I'd like to say two things. One is I think that a conversation about budget and number of seats cannot be done without integrally including the design, right? Because in any kind of real estate development, the design can make or break a place, and you could have something that is built at 10,000 square feet but feels like 20,000 square feet, and you can build something that's 20,000 square feet but functions like 10,000. So design is very important in tying all these things together, which then again ties in your budget and your use and all the good things. So I think that what got off on the wrong foot here is, for some reason, you know, plans got produced and introduced day one way back when, and then without much community support or review, and now we're still working on those. Those plans haven't changed yet. And I guess the idea would be to, if any kind of negotiation come into play where we all come to the table and try to come, and I think, you know, I'm glad that, you know, the group that put out these recommendations,
I can't talk,
are talking about very simple 30,000 foot items, right? And not getting into the weed of the details, because that's got to be left for the professionals who are going to be designing from a construction perspective, from use perspective, and from you know, and actually most importantly, to keep the historical designation up. So my vote here is, since there's it would be not prudent for us to try to come up together with a resolution discussion until we actually hear the October 4th meeting, and actually try to take these 4 points and the comments I'm hearing and the notes I made tonight to talk more with Commissioner Regalado's office, with Michael Spring and those, and try to get more information on there. And then we again convene as a village council to discuss and see what we come up with.
Marcelo, we do have 4 hands up. They've been up
Yes.
for quite a while.
Yes, so I'm gonna try to focus on the council members first, and we'll go to the residents later. Go ahead, Rachel.
So one quick follow-up question, and maybe Rebecca doesn't have the answer now, but for October 4th. Again, we've talked a lot about the listing on the National Register of Historic Places, and in my experience, not directly with this particular agency, but many other agencies, you're sort of given a flexibility of a dry run, we call it, you know, bring the drawing, sit down at the table, and sort of feel out what the response would be from whomever would be the reviewer later on down the line, to see if it follows the interior standards. And just has that been done? Has there been conversations to know that the plan you have in front of you, or in front of all of us, is sort of in that realm of possibility that it meets the interior standards for renovating a historic structure?
I don't honestly know the answer to that, but that's an excellent question that we will definitely be asking.
All right, very good. Anybody else on the council? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We have a really packed agenda item, and we have some people waiting. I know I count 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 hands up, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to each one individually, but I'd like to request that you guys can keep your comments to like a minute or less. And I'll take notes because we don't have the time on this meeting to go into full discussions on it. But if you can, think of your thoughts real quick and put the bullet points down, I'll be taking notes and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go with the ones I saw first. Max Pearl, you have a comment? You there?
There, I unmuted myself successfully, I think.
Yes.
So the state, I've spoken with Tim Parsons. I've had a cordial relationship with him, just, getting information straight from the horse's mouth. We're talking about some very important matters. And of course, we don't want to get into the weeds and we want to rely on professionals, and yet at the same time, we're not getting any information from these professionals. I have yet to hear from the county any of these experts that talk about the viability of a larger theater versus a smaller theater. We have, however, done the homework. Mike Edson's done the homework. We've spoken to not just Zev Buffman, who ran the Playhouse, but numerous professionals all around the country who say that a smaller theater is not going to be sustainable. And rather than rely on playwrights, as Michael Spring has done, playwrights cannot tell you what the sustainability, they write plays. Their business is not as a producer to get the bottom line, which is the funding, the feasibility. So we need to ask the right people these questions, not the wrong people, as the county's been doing. But yes, there has been, jumping to another point, there has been a state input several times. It's found the county non-compliant on a number of issues, including missing deadlines that has caused the delays that we're all concerned about. And I think that the historic preservationists are getting the blame for these so-called roadblocks, when it's really the county that's failed to, if you'll read these documents from the letters from the state, finding them in violation of the lease, and in violation of the interior standards that was just mentioned by someone on the council. So yes, the state has given its input, and it's very clearly, unequivocally said that the county's plan does not meet the Secretariat guidelines. In fact, there are 7 violations, 7 different guidelines that they're in violation of. So I hope that when we go forward, we're asking these great questions that you've brought up to the right people.
Okay,
namely
thank you.
Tim Parsons and people that are in a producer or artistic director, people that are actually running the theater and watching the money, the bottom line.
Very
And
good.
We need a theater. We need a theater that's going to be having a theater supporting the businesses, not the other way around. That's what the Playhouse
Max,
always did. It can.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. Thank you,
it was
Max.
the-
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, Carmen Peleas.
Hello, I am incredibly encouraged by some of the questions being asked tonight. Will it retain national landmark under the county's plan? Absolutely not. You cannot demolish 83% of a structure and keep landmark registration. Rick Gonzalez made it very clear that they are in violation of the state contract. It will lose historic designation, which is why we're all up in arms. We're not just people that are purists and want to preserve at all costs. I am an actor, I'm a writer, I've performed at Coconut Grove Playhouse. It is a historic theater. Anywhere in the world where you go and discuss theater, they know about Coconut Grove Playhouse. We must restore it. When I was there, restaurants were open, gift shops were open. When I go to the Grove Village now, tons of retail spaces empty. The traffic, there's going to be solutions for that. But what I would offer is that the alternate plan that Mike Edson has put forward has a community component program that brings the West Grove directly in, not just by offering it a park, but by offering it after school programs, theater education programs. I think it's important that we keep asking questions. We all want to see it done. We all want to get this up. I'm a theater artist. I am dying to get back into that building and be produced in that building, but we must do it correctly. And we must do it financially, mindfully, especially in these economic times. If a public-private partnership is possible as a citizen that pays taxes, I want to see that happen. Thank you, everybody. Keep asking questions, and I hope that we get it done right. There's no reason not to get this done right and not to come up with a compromise. But landmarking is going to, pass this prologue. Landmarking is going to create economic development for the village, and it's going to keep the heart of the Grove, which we're losing every day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Keep
you.
asking questions, and thank you for the time, Marcelo.
Very welcome. I'm gonna go to the next person, but just real quick, I think that we need to focus on, talk about this plan. I know there've been other plans in the past, and I know I talked on Edson and Heisenbottle, and right now I think we need to focus on issues with this plan and this point going forward, and then we can go from there. So Melissa Meyer, I think you have your hand up also, the next person.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Melissa Meyer, and I am an architectural professional with a bachelor's degree in environmental design and architecture and a master's degree in architecture from North Carolina State University. I'm also a lead AP in building design and construction and a member of the AIA and NCARB. And I would just like to clarify that the Playhouse is a preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, and a reconstruction project all in one. It must follow the Secretary of State Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Properties common sense preservation principles that promote the best practices to help protect and fund our irreplaceable cultural historic resource. Preservation would entail the original building facade. There is not a front building. That is a gimmick. It has always been a single building. Rehabilitation, the original building shell or building envelope, can be fully rehabilitated. Restoration is a significant historic elements, the Solomonic column, the double proscenium arch, and the decorative grills can be fully restored in their existing locations. The reconstruction component of the project would include the integration of modern theater technology and the addition of modern theater support spaces to replace non-historic additions. So the integrated theatrical modern day technology spaces entail integrated flex space, which would include the removal of the mezzanine, thus reducing the number of seats and making room for integrated technology. Removable front row seats and expandable, removable stage components and platforms could create adaptable and flexible proscenium stage accommodations to accommodate a variety of performance types. So flex space in design is a thing that we need to explore.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, for that input. Guillermo de la Paz,
Yes,
see you next.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Marcelo, thank you for the opportunity. I can see one of my neighbors, Anthony. Anthony and myself, we live very close by to the theater.
Site.
And my thought is just do it like Nike, because we haven't had that theater closed for 18 years, I believe it is. And building falls. We saw it on Surfside. They fall because lack of maintenance. And we may be here in a couple of years asking ourselves what bad decision we made as a community and let that building go down. I just want to share something with you. And that side, you can see the ocean for 30 feet above the crown of the road, which means that is a premium size to do a tower and do high-end condos. So we don't own that piece of land. It's owned by the state. If the state decides to catch up $35 million for the land, they can sell it. And we're gonna be doing plans and going back and forth and 600 and 700 and 1,000 seats. And we might lose that opportunity to have a theater there. I am not a theater expert, but I can tell you that real estate wise, it's the last piece of land in Miami-Dade County that you can see the ocean from. So have that in consideration and make a decision and just do something about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And the last person, Anthony, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much, Marcelo. So I'm Anthony Vinciguerra, as Guillermo said, I live right here in Charles. I can see the Playhouse from my yard. I'm a member of a group called Preserve the West Grove, which formed, it's the people that live within 500 feet of what was the proposed Grove Inn. And the group hasn't taken a position on the Playhouse issue, but because we're within 500 feet of the Grove Inn, we're essentially the same group that's within 500 feet of the Playhouse. And I can tell you just informally in conversations amongst about the 70 members of the group that live in the West Grove within 500 feet of the Playhouse, that every single person I've spoken to thinks that it's just a basic decision. Of course, the building was designated historic. Of course, the entire building should be saved and preserved. And that it seems, arguments that it can't be saved seem just to be cost-cutting measures, that it seems just pretty obvious that the things that Andy's group are proposing are realistic. As Marcelo said, they're big picture questions that should be able to happen. So I look forward to seeing it. At this point, I personally would not be comfortable with the plan being proposed. Again, I live in a historic home right here on Charles, unfortunately, one of the few. And if I wanted to take out 3/4 of my house, it would no longer be determined historic. So I'm not sure why that would be okay for the Playhouse. But thank you for everyone's time.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close out the conversation on this one. And I'm going to propose to us for the village council members, just for you all to know that, even though, we only meet once a month, we as the village council members do email and we haven't met as much as we used to pass physically, but we do email and virtually speak a lot during the month to try to get these items going. So I'm going to propose that I'm going to send out the notes I took just now to the council members. So we have more conversation going on, and then we will definitely be partaking in the October 4th meeting. And then and in the meantime, try to get to some of the between the Commissioner Regalado, between Michael Spring and some other people there with the comments we've had here. And then try to see if we can get together with a resolution by the October 4th or right after the October 4th meeting. Move on to the next item, which is the intersection with Douglas and Grand. Probably you don't know, there's been a application is being proposed or to go into for an upzone and a new development on that corner. For all you not aware, it's the corner. It's actually got an asphalt parking lot on it. It's on the southwest corner of Douglas and Grand, and also this application goes through. We'll see crosses of Washington Street there also. So I believe we have Melissa Tapanes here representing the developer. Let me see if I can get Melissa. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, Marcelo.
Perfect. So again, it's a packed agenda. It's 7:15, so it's good. I don't want to rush you, but I think if we can give a quick overview for, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, then we can go over more to questions if you don't mind.
Let
Absolutely.
me ask Melissa if she wants to share a screen. I can make her the administrator. Do you?
Yes, I can share my screen. If you would allow this, I have my law firm logo here. If you'll allow me to share that screen, I could go ahead and put on my presentation.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. So yes, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present this evening. We've been having community meetings first over the summer with smaller groups. And more recently, this week, we've had larger community groups. Hank, were you able to allow me to share?
I just did it. You are now the host and you can share your screen.
Okay, give me 1 second because it's not allowing me to share.
Try again. I just saw it go up here on my screen.
As I mentioned, I was asking for this, the logo to be allowed to share screen.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's not, so it's still not allowing me to.
Sorry. Let me keep trying. I don't know why that didn't work.
There's a section you need to change.
Yeah, I got an indication here that Melissa is the host now, so I don't know if that.
Yeah, Melissa, you're the host, and if you click on share screen at the bottom, the little green icon, you should be able to share your screen.
Hank, just to clarify, did you make the icon BRSLT? That's the icon.
Yeah, it's
person
okay. I'll
that
do it.
needs to
I'm able
share.
to.
All right.
I'm able to figure it
All right.
out. All right. I took control.
BRSLT is the host
It's
now.
all good.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So we'll all go as quickly as I can through this presentation. So many of you know me. I'm a land use and zoning attorney here in the city of Miami. I live in Coconut Grove, and here I'm representing Andale Group. They own many properties as part of their portfolio in West Grove. You can see here, this is the intersection of 37th and Grand. We'll be talking about these parcels in blue, 1 and 2. I'll refer to 1 as the Grand parcels, and I'll refer to what's known as 2 as the Washington parcels. For purposes of just context, many of you know the owners. They have these properties that are in purple, and I think it's just important to note that, what kind of businesses and what kind of property owners they are. As Marcelo mentioned, this is the surface parking lot that is the Grand parcels, and this is the vacant land that is the Washington parcels. And you'll note as you drive down Douglas, the elementary school, and of course the surface parking area, you'll note these gorgeous oak trees. Those will be preserved, so please don't worry about them. We're here because we have a land use and zoning application we'd like to discuss with the community. We have submitted a zoning application to the city of Miami. We're batch stamped and ready to go to hearing once we apply to hearing boards, but we did want to have this opportunity for community input prior to going through the public hearing process. We have about 6 months to go to hearing between the time that we were batch stamped a few weeks ago and when we would have to go to hearing. So these are the subject properties. These are the Washington parcels, and these 2 are the Grand parcels. And you'll see why I have big X's as to what the proposed zoning is for those Grand parcels, which we'll talk about in more detail. So this is the land use plan amendment. We're all familiar with Grand Avenue. We've got restricted commercial at that corner piece and duplex residential in the 1 parcel, the westernmost parcel along Grand, and the entire assemblage of the Washington parcels are all designated as duplex. What we're proposing to do is move forward with redesignating the Washington parcels to low density restricted commercial that will allow us to do mix of uses and specifically allow retail and office. Sadly, and I'll tell you about why in a few moments as well, the Grand parcels are part of the application in order to comply with some Miami 21 rules, which we'll talk about, but we're asking for those to be denied. And we'll go into detail on that in a moment. The current zoning is T50 and T30. It's all part of the Grand Avenue Vision Plan. It's just west of the NCD2. And what we're proposing is for the Washington parcels to go from T30 to T40. Specifically, the requests are to bifurcate the request between the Washington parcels and the Grand parcels. We're asking the City Commission to approve the land use and zoning changes for the Washington parcel and deny the land use and zoning for the Grand parcels. And of course, this Grand parcels upzone to T68 is terrible optics. And we definitely don't want that to be approved, but we had to ask for it because this section of Miami 21, 7.128C1 requires for us either to have 40,000 square feet of land area or 200 feet of street frontage. The entire assemblage is about 35,000 square feet and has 200 feet of linear frontage on Douglas. So we have to include that entire assemblage as part of the land use and zoning amendments. If you look at eventually, once it becomes, goes to the public hearing, you'll see a lot of back and forth emails between me and the planning staff, debating why I need to make this request. But anyway, they decided that we did need to make this request, and we're simply asking for it to be denied. We have proffered a declaration of restrictions, making very clear that what we're asking for is this T4O zoning, so create a transition from the T50 commercial corridor on Douglas to what are the schools and the churches in the immediate area to our south. So I'm going to speed through a little bit of our presentation in the interest of time, but I've had many of these community meetings in the past, and if you'd like to meet with me one-on-one or would like me to join a meeting of your associations or groups, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to do that. So this property is all part of the West Grove CRA. So you can see where the property is located. The goal is to, of course, redevelop idle vacant land, improve the streetscape, and promote local businesses by contributing to the ad valorem tax base to achieve the CRA's goals. And that's the subject of the other meeting that's happening at Varick Park. Consistent with the CRA mission statement, promoting economic development, eliminating and preventing blight through community partnerships, business growth, job creation, and neighborhood revitalization. As we all know, West Grove has many vacant idle parcels that lead to the slum and blight. Specifically, the redevelopment plan showed 261 idle vacant lots, of which our property is included. Our property is also within the CRA infrastructure deficiencies map for deficient asphalt, deficient sidewalks, and deficient curb and gutter. All these things not only lead to unsafe vehicular access through the West Grove, but of course, deficient pedestrian and bicyclist access, as well as environmental degradation through the lack of curb, gutter, and stormwater retention. Our client's assemblage is actually part of the CRA economic development goals, known as the goal number 1, which is to preserve existing legacy businesses and uses. On the applicant's portfolio is featured in that plan. Goal number 2 of the West Grove CRA is also to create thriving commercial destinations by encouraging and facilitating sound real estate acquisition, assemblage, development, and public-private partnerships. And of course, the Four Corners, which is intended to be a gateway for the community, and we see this as the catalyst for private investment in the West Grove, is definitely features primarily in the West Grove CRA master plan as goal 17. So as I mentioned, the property is just west of the NCD2, but it is within the mixed use cultural district. The mixed use cultural district, as applied to this property, would not allow for that mix of uses, which is why we're asking for that rezoning to T4O. We're all very familiar with the context of Douglas Road and Grand and what is developing in the area. We see this proposed redevelopment as the westernmost anchor to Grand Avenue, where CocoWalk provides retail and office spaces to the east. We're hoping to create that anchor to the west in the West Grove. Notably, for many of our residential landowners, I want to note that the property is outside of the transit-oriented development map, meaning we can't take advantage of like 30% parking reductions. And the goal of this project, and specifically this rezoning, is to include structured parking that is fully lined and hospitable and transitional to the surrounding area. The property is obviously well served by transit, the trolley, the Metro rail station. And what we're proposing to do at the corner, and this is just a quick rendering. I've received many commentary regarding the architecture not being what is envisioned for West Grove, and we are working on revised architectural renderings. But I think it was important to provide the massing and the scale that is allowed as of right for T50, and this project has been approved at this intersection. It's 4 stories with a rooftop, ground floor retail, office. The parking entrance is on Washington Avenue, which is the secondary frontage, and that's included in the Grand Avenue vision plan, not to have vehicular access from Grand, but rather through the secondary frontages, and why Washington is important. You may have recalled that there is a T30 portion of the property, that's the westernmost lot. It is included as 100% landscape open space to form a little parklet on Grand Avenue that will be, of course, privately maintained. And here you can see the ground floor retail, the vehicular access on Washington, as well as the green space in that T30 parcel. And I'm just going to zoom through these presentations as quick as I can. The landscape plan, it shows all the existing landscape material and trees. And of course, we're adding to that as well at the frontage, as well as that new parklet feature for the T30 buffer site. Now, the subject of the application, what we really need, the land use and zoning amendment, is this Washington Avenue parcel. And you may have seen our renderings of the project. And I understand that, again, we've received much commentary about it, and we're going to be working on these plans to make them more in line with the Bahamian vernacular, the traditional kind. But this was, I think, a good first start for our design professionals. The proposed entitlements allow for a 3-story building with ground floor retail, office space, the parking entrance on the secondary frontage. And because we're asking for T40 zoning, it allows for or requires 40% open space and only 60% lot coverage. You can see that there is the wood veneer facades with aluminum shading materials, balconies, trellises, oolitic limestone, and of course the oak trees will remain. What I'd like to point out is the new streetscape component. As you might recall, driving past the site or those initial pictures, how there is no sidewalk in this area, there are no street trees, there is no curb and gutter. So the streets will be widened, consistent with the base building lines that I'll show you in one moment here. And here, I guess you can see it a little bit better. This is the site plan, and what you can see as part of the property boundary today is this black hatch. And what you can see will be the new property boundary is in the red hatch, known as the base building line. Everything between the base building line and the existing property line will be dedicated to the public for new pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, on-street parking spaces, street trees on all those 3 sides. So I'll take you quickly through the slides, and I will bring you back to, well, I think I should show you the Washington Avenue elevation is fully lined with that parking garage. This is the elevation with the landscape buffering towards the west. And here you can see the Thomas Avenue, which fronts the elementary school, which is meant to be fully pedestrian friendly. And I'll show you an elevation of that in a moment. So here you can see northbound on Douglas, you can see the rapid transit zone developing in the foreground. And here is, of course, the pedestrian Thomas Avenue side. So that is my presentation. As quickly as I could run through it, I want to respect your time, but I do want to make myself available for any questions, comments, or follow-up meetings. We have been getting a lot of community input, and we're definitely taking that into account. And the reason for this outreach in advance is because we do want to be able to move forward in a way that is consistent with our client's vision of this, of their work in West Grove, which is to be community oriented. We found out about today's meeting just a couple of weeks ago, so that's why we're not moving forward for the hearing process right away. As I mentioned, we have about 6 months from the time we were batch stamped to move forward. And we're hoping to be a part of this correcting zonings to make things, make development easier and more in line with what the community's vision is.
Great.
So that's it.
Thank you, Melissa. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to just go through some really quick bullet points to clarify some things so that we don't get off on a tangent, because I think we had a lack of time to try to focus on the important items. So for everyone, the corner parcel that's on Grand is T50 now. They're developing something as T50 as of right. So it's really not a conversation. I do totally agree that West Grove does need to have the architectural Bahamian features, and it seems like they're going to be addressing that. So we're not here really to decide on an architectural design issue right now, but I think they do have to comply with that, which is part of the code now, to try to keep it that Bahamian architecture. So the focus is really on changing the parcel number 2, which is the Washington, from T30 to T40, right? So that's the conversation piece. And just to be very clear, when you change zoning, obviously you get increase in density, you get increase in height. But again, when they're requesting something, I think it's prudent for us to ask that it be attached to a site plan. So that way you don't give the next person carte blanche just to do whatever they want with T4 in case this development never gets to fruition, right? So you ask for a zoning upgrade tied into certain items that, is something that if for any reason this parcel gets sold or things change, that, it doesn't have a carte blanche to do whatever they want going forward. I think
so
that
Marcelo, if I may, since we're proposing office retail, I did proffer a covenant. We definitely want to tie ourselves to a site plan, and we're willing to covenant to, if the property is ever developed for residential, for it to be affordable housing. Those are the kinds of things that why we proffer that covenant, in addition to be able to address concerns such as like environmental efficiency as far as our construction goes, local preferential workforce housing, things of that nature. So that's the kind of work that we're doing as part of our outreach to ensure that we can address those comments.
perfect. And those are all things that we as residents want to have in place. That way, again, it's not just a free for all once they get an increased zoning. Now, on the other side, I must say that all the study I've done in the Grove, unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, the Grove was supposed to come back and be re-studied when Miami 21 got approved way back when, because they ran out of time. And if you go through the Grove and look at the zoning, there's no rhyme or reason to where is T5, where is T4, where is T3. And for sure, one of the blights reasons for the Grove has been the wrong zoning, right? And I think that T30, which is a duplex zone, doesn't belong there on the most major intersection of the West Grove. So I think a zoning increase or change is very needed. And then again, because we're going through this process, we can control or at least try to get some covenant proffered, so it's not also a free for all. So I think these are all good things, and this is part of reasonable development going forward that we can talk about. I think that if we step aside from the architectural design, if they are going to be bringing in a new design, then we can hold back on those comments until we get there, because I know those are all things. No one's right on design, but I think here we do have a code that requires it to be more of the Bahamian feel, and I think they're going to be doing that. And I think the big issue is, this is what we're talking about, the toolbox, right? When you get somebody zoning, can we offer benefits, bonuses, whatever, if we encourage the developer to do housing, if that's something that we want? How can we come in partnership with them and say, look, let's think outside the box here. T3, T4 offers A, B, C, but if we give them something else, can they give us back more, right? So I just want to put that out there as conversation. I would like to open up to any of the council members to have any comments or questions on this. Go ahead, Rachel.
Sure. Oops, things are flopping around. Okay, so a couple of questions. I think Amy just chatted, and I was going to ask the same thing about a traffic study. The use of commercial well, let me start off one thing. In Marcella, all the things that you said, I for the most part agree with. However, it's not just a changing from the 3 to 4, but it's also a change from residential use, the flume maps to commercial, right? So it's two parts of that discussion, not just, and again, architecturally and aesthetically, I think we can put that aside. So my first question was changing it to a commercial use. And then, you know, Amy put into the little chat about traffic study, if there was one required and if there's one pending, you know, how that's kind of shaping up. I assume there probably is one needed. And if we can kind of get some kind of feedback from that to kind of see a little bit of what the results are and what potential offsite improvements might be needed, that would be great. The other question I don't know off the top of my head, but if it remained T3 residential compared to T4 commercial, the level of intensity from an infrastructure perspective, knowing that the Grove suffers from lack of water and sewer infrastructure. I know you had a lot of good diagrams showing the sidewalks and you know, issues there from an infrastructure perspective, but also what's happening underground from our water and sewer perspective, if there's any required improvements there, lift stations or any other things that would give more of a community benefit to where things might be suffering during, you know, king tides or whatever else might be happening. So that was my other question. And then on the plan, I think you had shown sort of that green space that was going to be remaining a green space to the rear of the Grand, I think, site. And so I know you described it as saying that it was going to be privately maintained, but if I look at the site plan detail, it says it's privately used. And I just wanted clarification, what is the intent of that? And I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but it's sort of like what's going on with that green space and why do you not have anything proposed for it? Like, what is your real vision for it? And is it intended to be a community sort of space? And are there availability or limited hours or whatnot for that? Those are sort of my general questions. And then one that came up in the community meeting that I attended, which I think should have some follow-up, which is the Adele Group and sort of what their other properties are in terms of track record. And I don't think you had a good you know, answer for the group at the time, but I think a little homework on being able to present to the community who Adele Group is, and sort of hopefully there's some hallmark pieces that you can show what kind of successes they've had in the community or positive impacts, and maybe see how that would impact this particular site. So those are just a run through of all the questions.
So Melissa,
Okay.
1 second, just 1 second, please. So thank you, and we'll get right to your, I just want to point out to everyone that T4 is not restricted to only commercial, right? So T4 does allow residential. So it's just, and it's a higher, it's multifamily, right? So it's more than duplex. So you can do residential, and they have, you know, by going to T4, residential could be an option for that site. So it's not just related to commercial. Go ahead, Melissa. Thanks.
Absolutely. So regarding number one, the traffic analysis, the project was analyzed for purposes of traffic. A traffic analysis was not required at this stage. We have taken that under consideration and we'll be working on doing a traffic analysis, but because the project is simply such a small development program, that's the reality of it. It doesn't meet the threshold of requiring it at this stage. But to address those concerns, that is on our to-do list. The second issue was water and sewer. So we don't have a water and sewer issue in Coconut Grove at the moment. We did during the recession, as we're all aware of, before the infrastructure was upgraded by the Terra Group as they were building on South Bayshore Drive. So we don't have any water and sewer issues. Of course, when it relates to stormwater retention, all of that must be done on site through Miami-Dade County's environmental resource permit process. What was the next question was about the Andale Group and what they have built or done in the community. And they own their they own commercial properties. They're investors. What they have done in this area is long-term investment. So I mentioned earlier, and I had a slide as to what they own and actually manage in West Coconut Grove. So hopefully that answers the question of what they do and how are they, as what are their track records. You can see the businesses and the properties that they maintain right on the north side of Grand Avenue. There are other holdings, as I mentioned at that community meeting, are shopping centers in other parts of Miami-Dade County and throughout the state, the country, the world. But really, I think what's most important is what they own, right here in West Coconut Grove. So I hope I answered that question. I don't know if you're asking for a list of all their property holdings everywhere, but.
So,
Oh,
go ahead, Rachel.
I'll just clarify. I think the sites that you showed on the map, sort of the purple and the blue, and that represents what they have in West Grove, I think it makes a lot of sense. But this becoming a more commercial oriented property with the development as office, I think looking for something a little bit more in keeping with that kind of project type, as opposed to single family or duplex residential, which is what the rest of those West Grove sites are. But and maybe there's commercial in.
Those are all commercial. They're on Grand Avenue and on Douglas. Those are all commercial with tenants, and that's what they anticipate doing here, providing local businesses an opportunity, local offices, people like you and me who want an office near where they live. That's what they're intending to do. So I think that's the intent. I think I answered. Did I miss one?
And the green space. So tell me about
the green space. Good
on.
question. So what we did was the parcel was zoned T3O, and we wanted to basically improve it, right? It's part of our private land holding, so it's basically open space, and it provides that buffering to the west. So it'll all be improved. As far as the question of will it be open to the public, I think that all just depends on maintenance and what kind of use it will give. I think the idea is to be green space so that it could be a nice amenity, but it will be privately maintained, and it needs to be privately maintained, right? It's private land. So I'm interested in like a partnership, and I think that's the reasons for these meetings, right? If there's a vision for these, open space, I think the main thing is to have it be improved with some landscaping and look nice.
So the one thing I'll just throw out there, and I maybe this isn't the right form, but there's been a bit of chatter on Nextdoor for a community garden. We used to in Boston call them victory gardens. Mm-hmm. And so especially for an area that's a little bit more, urban, a little more built out, that people don't have the luxury of, a backyard where they can grow their own things. I mean, that might be one piece of really tying it into a community and still allowing it to be green space. But the follow-up or last question is in the covenant. Is that covenant described to remain green space? You talked about there were some restrictions on some of the other areas that would in the covenant. How is that green space handled in it?
Right. So the covenant is a draft covenant that we've submitted to the city of Miami. And really what the covenant provides is that what we want to be rezoned, that T4O parcel will remain. And what it really is a opportunity to memorialize any kinds of community input, right? Like, so if the idea is for us to do a community garden, the covenant, that's where it'll be. Of course, my work on community gardens can be hit or miss, right? Some communities love them, except the next door neighbors, they hate them, and then it becomes a maintenance issue. And I know in the Grove, we've had the ideas of a community garden in the past, and it's been with mixed results. So as far as how it's treated in the plans, it's as private open space. That's what it is, which means that we can allow access to it or not allow access, depending on what the best result will be. So I think we're open to any suggestions. What we want to do is create that kind of buffering between an actual T5O parcel and a T3O parcel. And that's actually what we're trying to prevent through the rezoning, right? Because it's a major, it's obviously Douglas, it's a corridor, it's the major intersection and neighborhood gateway. So what we're trying to do is, as we look east to west on Grand Avenue, we're able to provide that buffer of that T3O parcel, but we're not able to do the same north to south or, north to, so those are the issues that we're trying to work on. And we also want to make sure that we're creating structured parking for what we hope this will be a phase 1 to redevelop these 4 corners. And there is another just catty corner. There is vacant land, and we're hoping that what we can do is really move forward in a positive way that's consistent with what many have said about the West Grove CRA, bringing all these items to fruition.
Very good. Thank you. Any other council member have a question? Linda?
Thank you. Melissa, I've attended the previous 2 meetings, and at every meeting, I will be asking the same question for the record. I'm very concerned about the square footage rental rate in this office building should it be developed. And if small businesses will be able to afford if we don't address a reduced square foot rental rate. The small businesses in our community now, some of them are along Grand Avenue and may stay where they are, but I'm concerned about the college students coming out to hang their shingle, or entrepreneurs. Will they have be able to take advantage of renting space in this building? My other concern was the parking entrance and exit on Washington. That's the most narrow street, I think, in the Grove. And at previous meetings, you mentioned sidewalks and gutters and all kinds of things will be included in your plan. Washington, I don't think can be moved back enough to allow for the traffic jam that this project is going to cause. And will the residents along Washington and Thomas be subjected to traveling down Grand Avenue to Brooker Street, which is the next smallest street in Coconut Grove Village West? So I'm very concerned. I would like to know about the traffic study update as it relates to deliveries. I mean, we're talking about a major concern when it relates to traffic. And finally, on the covenants, my last question at the last meeting was, is it between the owners and the city of Miami? You mentioned something about the funding sources, your bankers or whatever. It's private money. These people have all these holdings all over the world, as you say. I would strongly recommend or suggest or ask that a third party, like one of our longstanding organizations, be included in that covenant so that we are abreast of changes, of things that may go bump in the night. This community has been left out of a lot of decision making for it, even though we have been asking for certain and specific things, and we keep getting as of right to do what you want to do and present to us what you think is beautiful and pretty. We need housing. We need this office building, but maybe not on that site. Thank you.
Okay. Would you, I don't know if there's a question in there about the covenant, and I think,
yes,
the covenant does go along with the land, so it's not really amongst parties, but Melissa, if you want to answer that question.
Yes, so I've answered, as Ms. Williams mentioned, she's made the same comments and I've answered them a few times. We understand that there are concerns. Our work is to address those concerns. So we've been speaking about reduced rents for local and historical residents in the community. We've also been provided with ideas of community partnerships as it relates to the idea that if the property is not developed with office and retail, for it to be developed as affordable housing. As it relates to the issue of the width of the streets, part of my presentation was showing how properties and redevelopments like this will contribute to the public infrastructure by dedicating land for new streets, new sidewalks, new curb and gutters. So all those things will occur here as on all three sides of the Washington parcels as an example. The last item was the covenant, and correct, the covenant is the one that we've proffered is with the city of Miami. Most times that's the way residents like it because the city can enforce it through revocation of certificates of use and liens and things of that nature. But we are exploring community partnerships as well. And I'll definitely, as we move forward, I'll reach back out to the village council so that we can provide an update on, the architectural plans, as well as where we are with the actual draft covenant and the traffic analysis, et cetera. So thank you, Ms. Williams.
Okay, so I have a couple of follow-up questions.
The
Go ahead.
city has not enforced a lot of things that are needed in Village West. So this is my concern, and we really need to visit that discussion seriously, because a lot of things have gone unenforced in Village West. And this is a movie that we see over and over again. And I'm really concerned about some of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up with a couple of questions just on a more basic level. So Melissa, this is talking specifically about the T4 parcel, right? So the design you guys have now, and I understand these are, they're having these meetings preliminarily, so they don't, the next phase, once they get approval of certain items as far as site plan size, and then they can go forward with, traffic studies and so forth, because right now it'd be kind of mute to do it without even knowing what's approved there, right? So that's the process is this way. But Melissa, as far as the design is proposed for the T4 parcel, which would be the office building, are you building it as of right under the T4, or are you asking for any other variances or waivers or exceptions in the T4 regulations?
Right, the plans that you see before you are as of right under T4O. As you know, there are waivers that sometimes become necessary as you begin with those construction drawings, but it's intended to be an as of right project.
Okay, so as far as the number of parking spaces you're offering for the offices and retail, that all complies, correct?
Absolutely, we're providing more parking, because the idea is to provide parking not just for the site itself, but what we anticipate being the four corners of a neighborhood gateway.
And as far as the height of the building and the lot coverage, is that also within the T4 areas?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the good thing about T4O, as you know, is that it requires 40% open space. It's only 60% lot coverage, so it is transitional.
So the interesting item here, and it's just I'm throwing this out as a food for thought. This is a perfect example of say, okay, from a financial analysis, these property owners, be it developer or anyone else that's doing these things here, are buying properties at a very high rate. So in order for them to make it profitable, they've got to, make something that is market. But I think somebody could please turn off their mic.
It attracts many who chase the illusion of a simpler time.
I think it's Cindy, thank you. So this is a perfect scenario that if a developer comes along and asks for upzone T4, and we're saying, well, I'm sure your pro forma works based on that, or you wouldn't be going ahead with it. Would we as a community allow, let's say, maybe one more floor or maybe a half floor if that floor is given back to the community in, let's say, affordable housing, or in, let's say, something that would be for, even if it's keep it commercial or retail, that then half or 30%, whatever number there is, we give tit for tat, right? So that, and I think that corner, even though it is a very busy corner, it is surrounded by residential, and no better place to have work and live in the same spot. You could literally walk to many offices and schools by living in that building there, and would not require any additional parking. And so here's a scenario where you could maybe, okay, we'll give you the T4, but in exchange, we'll even allow you to give one more floor if, and it's something, are you willing to do that, community? Would you willing to go instead of I think is T4 4 stories, Melissa, or is it 5?
It's T4 is 3 stories.
It's 3 stories. So would the community see if we, okay, give 3 stories, but allow them to go 1 more floor as long as that floor is fully given back to affordable housing or workforce housing that could be there. So those are the kind of negotiation would be interesting to see, which would not create any more traffic because it'd be really designed to have people live and work and school and churches. I mean, you could stones throw any 4 directions and comply with everything you need to do from groceries to shopping, all that. And that would be a neat, negotiation opportunity, which I think would be a win-win for all. Just my comment to put out there for the food for thought. Anybody else in the village council have any comments to make before I open up for some other questions? Okay, great. I see there's 2 hands up and I'm gonna take them both, but guys, please try to keep it short and try to keep it to a point where it's not getting into the weeds too much. So I'm gonna go ahead. Guillermo de la Paz, you have your question up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Marcelo, I got a couple of notes here from Rachel question that really surprised me. One was the traffic study, the green space, and the community gardens. This body, the village council approved a 36 hotel on my street next to residential properties. I never heard those questions asked from the village council about traffic study down Charles Avenue, about the architectural, about the community gardens. And West Grove community gardens, they don't work. People don't take care of the gardens. On Charles Avenue last year was done many years, I think 2-3 years back was done one and never was taken care. And my question to Rachel is, Rachel, and I don't mean this in the personal way. I mean it as a village council. You were very active when the a school was planning in front of your house. You were asking also for the traffic study. Where is the standards for the council to really approve a hotel in my street that happened to be 19 feet wide when the typical street is 24 foot wide? And then another question to all of you that at the village council, I do disagree with the architectural style, because if you really look at that property is not located on the NCD2. The boundary is 37th Avenue. And the boundaries end on the middle of the street. So if you take the boundaries on the east side, which is 32nd, the houses on the right, on the east side of 32nd are NCD3. And the properties on the 32nd on the east side are NCD2. So I don't think you're well informed of the NCD. And I don't think the architectural requirement for NCD2 applies for that building. So I don't know if it's too many questions at once, but those are my notes.
Okay. This is I believe we always apply the same standards in all our decisions, and they all have their intricate details. The project we did when we approved the resolution for the hotel down there, we did proffer also that it was something that was not going to be extended along any further than that area. So there was a condition put in there that would not continue that. We also proffered that the curb cutting was done in order to eliminate traffic coming down from the west to the east. So all the access was being done only from the east. And every other property has its own issues. There are many trees and green spaces that are always included in the design of that place already, which we actually didn't see here. So that's, I think, some of the answers to your questions. I don't know, Rachel, if you want to add any more to that.
By the way, regarding the sewer and water, the West Grove, so as an information, it does have sidewalk, sewer, and water. So there's no need for septics on that area.
Understood. I think you're muted, Rachel. Something's going on with your volume. Try again.
Project is within NCD 2 boundaries.
Guillermo is correct about the NCD 2 boundaries. In the Miami 21 code, it provides the boundaries, and this is located just west of the NCD 2. With that said, we are making best efforts to address the community's concerns for architectural consistency, and that is our intent.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? No.
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, I missed a little bit of the last piece. Maybe my headphones are dying. But I think to Guillermo's point and a little bit of Marcelo's point, I think we have, every project sort of has its highest priority of concern, meaning each thing is a little different, right? And I think on the Grove Inn site, the highest point of conversation for me was about the transition zoning from playhouse to residential, and sort of, as Marcelo pointed out, fixing some of that allowable transition areas. So that was, to me, that was the biggest focus for that particular ask when they came before us. I think the intensity of the traffic is pretty low for the inn. And I think to manage it, as Marcelo pointed out, we made some requests on how the traffic flow would work. I think on a office building, if offices are used there, there's a little bit more of a conflict for me from a traffic perspective, because the school across the street sort of has similar hours to people coming to work in the morning. Also being kids there on that street, to me, has a little bit higher risk, and to me, traffic is a little bit more important at this particular site than the Grove Inn. So that's why I think it was something I inquired about for here, but maybe I did personally not mention it or request it on the Grove Inn site. So that was,
I don't plan this a debate, but let me give you some information.
Guillermo, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off because we have Anthony, we have two other people going, so let's just get through everyone, because we've already been, 4 minutes on this one. So Anthony, let me take your question quick, and we gotta go one more item to go on there, please.
No, sure. It's just a quick comment. Again, from the group called Preserve the West Grove. These are, again, residents on Charles, William, and Thomas at this end. The group hasn't taken a position on this yet, but just in informal discussions the last several days about it, the general consensus is essentially along the lines of what Ms. Linda offered before, that the West Grove is seeing increasing pressure from commercial encroachment into the West Grove, the loss of both housing and affordable housing, and to be turning any more residential lots commercial. There has to be a really strong argument for that, beyond the argument for transition. The argument for transitional zoning, there's many, many parts of Miami where there's not transitional zoning, and to keep making that claim as a reason to have more encroachment on residential in the West Grove seems like just partial application of that argument in a particularly historically marginalized community. So I think the sense of the group that I've spoken to so far has just been that there has to be a really strong reason why, particularly in a lot that's essentially going to be across from one of the most historic Black churches in the city of Miami, to turn residential property commercial. It seems very problematic.
Okay, very good. Point well taken. I know that there'll be continued discussions, and I know Melissa's going to have more presentations. Village Council will reach out with more details before we come with any kind of decision resolution. Melissa, would you like to say anything in closing before we move on?
Thank you very much for your time. I'll make myself available to anyone who has any follow-up questions and concerns. And Marcelo, I'll definitely reconnect with you as the plans develop, and as I have more answers to the questions that were posed today regarding public benefits and the need for this rezoning application. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to we've had some requests and inquiries about the encampments in City of Miami Parks. Hank, I don't know if you're able to get somebody from the Parks Department to discuss with us about the homeless problems there.
I invited Barbara Hernandez, the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Miami. She accepted, but I didn't see her. So I think we should, we've had quite a bit of back and forth about this. The city commission also has been considering items about it. I think we should defer it until next month's meeting.
Yeah, so I know that this was also brought up a couple of weeks ago to us, to our attention. I know that there is we definitely, we had a full plate to start this week, so sorry that we didn't get to it. But I know that there has been, there seems to be a routine of when the departments in the city can check for homeless encampments. And it seems to be on a regular basis, but too far apart and no real solution. There's no proactive program. It's just kind of reacting to it. So we'll definitely look into that, and we'll put it on our next agenda also, and hopefully get you guys some more information on that. So finally, last but not least, this is your village council today is finishing up their 4-year term that we started back in 2017. There's a midterms elections coming up here in the city of Miami, which is going to be including the re-election of the 9 seats here for the village council. I'm happy to say that we received 17 applications for the 9 seats that will be available during midterm. The voting will be taking place on November 2nd. I believe that there will be myself will be the only one running for re-election. I heard from Sasha DeBurn, who had considered it but is now pulling out of the race. So there will be 16 people. We're welcoming everyone new on here. There is going to be on our website, not exactly the date, but soon, there will be a bio on each of the new candidates, or each of all the candidates on our website. That you will be able to go ahead and read about. And we will be having some, as we get closer, some forums and debates and greet and meet opportunities that we're trying to put together. I'm going to go ahead real quickly and just read off the names of the new candidates. And again, they will be on our website with a full bio very soon. So we have Hernan Guerrero Applewhite, Elena Asturias, Dan Austin, Christopher Barlato, Margot Bradley, Joseph Brown, Michael Jean Bryant, myself, Rose Fontaine, Javier Gonzalez, Jill Lansing, Casey Luaces, Alejandra Rondon, Caroline Saez, Corey Schwartz, and Anthony Witherspoons. I read those in alphabetical order of the last name because that's how it's going to be appearing on the ballot. I want to thank you all for becoming candidates on your own, and we look forward to a robust and very civil campaign period. And if any of the current council members want to have any comments for any of the on this item? None. No. Hank, go ahead.
I really regret that I decided not to run again, but I just can't handle 4 more years. I've got too much on my plate. I'm too busy with too many things. And Rachel and I talked about this. Rachel is not running either. And I think that's a big loss to all of us. Rachel has done such a great job. But we agreed that if it were 2 years, it might be more people. Well, I mean, we've got a good field of people. We've got good people running, and some of them are in this meeting, which I think is great. But if it were, I just hope that the next council will seriously consider revising the bylaws so that it's for 2 years. I'm not sure if the city commission has to bless that. I don't know how it works, but if it were 2 years, I might have run again. But it's been a great experience, and I think that it's I really welcome the opportunity for the village council to to be very involved in leading leading the community and also following what the community wants. I think it's been great.
Very good. Steve?
I'm not running again. I've termed out, but I would like to say that in my 8 years, I've been through 3 chairs, and Marcella, you've been the best, and I hope that you are the next chair.
Gee, thank you very much, Steve. And I must say that quite a few people did term out. That we've had quite a few people that have given their time and commitment for 8 years now. So it is their time to sit back and reap some of the benefits. But I think that this group has been very instrumental in turning this around organizationally wise. We have websites, we have all our documents backed up. So I think just from an outreach perspective, we've really succeeded in putting this on a nice platform. So, we are at obviously 100% a volunteer group. We're an advisory board to Commissioner Russell of District 2. And, this is obviously a non-paying job, but it's something that, we all believe is very important to keep our village the village. And I think the only reason I'm running again is there's some unfinished business that, I think COVID delayed some things from us, and we have a lot of things to do that I'd like to finish up there. But it's 8:15 and we try to keep these meetings up to 8 o'clock so that, we don't have run-ons. We'll hopefully also very in the near future, we'll be going back to the commission, have live meetings. And we'll let you know how that pans out. But I want to thank everyone coming. Unless there are any other comments from the council members before I close the meeting. Yes, Linda?
I want to thank you all for the support that I've been given over the last 8 years. It went by just like that, believe it or not. And to the new candidates, I would only say that you have to have the will to pursue what the people are telling you. You're their voice. It's nothing magical. It doesn't require degrees in anything. It's about delivering their voice. It's not a self-righteous position to have. And I hope that I've represented well. And I look forward to the upcoming election. It's going to be great. We have a great slate right now. It's going to be good.
Very good. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for being on our meeting tonight, and I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.